But I'm happy now to be joined by the Associate Minister, Nicole McKee, an ACT MP, who, of course, is charged or is going through with some changes, some alterations to our gun laws. Alterations which have seen her, I think, targeted this week after they made Karen Chua cry. The lefty news media and the leftists decided, who's the next cab off the rank for a good old public kicking? It's Nicole McKee. Nicole, thank you for joining us, or Minister, thank you for joining us. How have you found the week?
Good morning, Sean, and it's always great to be on your program with you. It's definitely been a very interesting week. I can be quite surreal to watch you being the topic of a conversation and things being said about you, and it's quite personal. But at the end of the day, I'm on a mission to get some good firearm laws for New Zealand and some good outcomes. So I'm going to just keep on boxing on no matter what the detractors say.
Well, you've done a terrible thing in politics, Nicole. It looks like you're going to do what you said you would to get the support of people who voted for you. And clearly that's just a dangerous precedent for us to set.
I think if we look at the bigger picture, Sean, we actually need to get a lot of New Zealand on board with the potential changes that we're going to make, because ultimately, yes, it's about the voters that got me into a position to make change, but it's about the safety of New Zealand. And if we can come up with some good, strict, strong laws that look at the safe use and possession of firearms, but also goes after the gangs and their illegal possession, then it's a win-win for the whole country. And ultimately, that's what I'm trying to achieve.
In page 1, 2, 3 of the Post this morning, another screeching headline: ex-gun lobbyist minister meets monthly with firearms groups. And that is Amelia Wade from the Post. She's trolled through the Official Information Act's Your Diary. Do you meet once a month with firearms groups?
I meet regularly with a lot of groups over all of my portfolios. Amelia did ring me and ask for an interview, and she asked about New Zealand Deerstalkers Association, who I've been meeting with monthly, and I explained to her we've just been doing changes on Part 6 of the Arms Act in regard to clubs and ranges. New Zealand Deerstalkers Association have over 12,000 members nationwide, over 27 clubs throughout the country. They're going to be hugely affected by the legislation. It kind of makes sense to meet with them to get their perspective on what the changes would do or not do for them, but they're not the only ones that I've been meeting with. So I've got no problem with actually getting to the groups who are going to be affected by legislation. It kind of makes sense to me, Sean.
All right, well, let's go to what kicked all this off. Do you meet regularly or monthly with the Police Association and the lovely Mr. Cahill?
No, I don't. And he has actually not even come to me and asked to meet with me at all. I do have a lot to do with New Zealand Police, with the papers that I'm putting through, and they've been very, very fulsome with their feedback. In fact, out of all of the groups, and I think there's 17, 18 of them altogether, police themselves give me more feedback than all of those groups put together. So I'm quite happy with where we've landed there. If Mr. Cahill wants to come and see me, he's more than welcome to.
So he's never asked for a meeting with you? He's never introduced himself to you?
Well, I've known him for some time.
Oh, you do know him personally?
He doesn't need to introduce himself to me, but if he wants to speak to me on a political matter like this, one would think that he would reach out and actually ask to come.
He's a funny old fella. He won't be interviewed by me because I disagreed with him once, but he's happy to come and talk with Michael Laws on the platform, so he can be quite personal, I think. And I'd hate to use the term, I use the term advisedly, a little bitchy by the sound of it.
Well, I don't think it's helpful to anybody to make personal attacks. At the end of the day, this government has a missive. We want to make New Zealand a safer place when it comes to firearms. I find his way of trying to get inside the tent a little odd. It's not endearing, that's for sure. But, you know, I actually want people to be constructive in the way that we move forward. And I do have an open door policy. I've actually expressed that to the opposition parties as well, called them into my office, told them we're going to make changes, said to them, come and speak to me. If there's something that you're worried about or you think I'm going down the wrong path, let's have a discussion, because at the end of the day, this government wants enduring firearms legislation that will keep our communities safe. That's what we're after. And having people barking at you personally is not helpful. We need constructive working relationships with each other.
It seemed to spark off, though, throughout the week across a number of legacy media publications. You were public enemy number one. You were the target this week of the media.
Yes, it certainly appeared that way.
Okay, what is it like to be at the centre of that sort of, and I'm going to call it like they do in social media, that was a media pile-on?
Yeah, look, it did feel like that, but I just stick to, excuse the pun, Sean, but I'm going to stick to my guns. I've got a lot of experience in this field, and I think that that's worthwhile and should be brought to the table. I've got qualifications in firearms safety. Yes, I was a lobbyist, but so is Chris Cahill. That's exactly what he's doing as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there was some puritanical, perfect world being painted where everyone in Parliament has lived a life as a Franciscan monk or a nun in a convent, and that supposedly we have a Parliament full of people without bias and life experience. And, of course, it's ridiculous to suggest that our politicians are like that. All of you have had lives outside Parliament, apart from senior members of the Labour Party who are just indoctrinated for life. But it is crazy, isn't it, to expect that you don't bring your life experience with you to the debating chamber and to being a minister.
Yes, and I do think that, especially when it comes to the firearms debate, that having knowledge is going to help New Zealand and go forward, because what we have had in the past, in the last 5 years, is people without any knowledge making laws and legislation that has put New Zealand in a worse place. I mean, you remember Stuart Nash said we're going to get all the guns off the street back in 2020. We now have more firearm incidents on the streets than ever before. In 12 months between May 2022 and May 2023, members on the National Gangs List committed 2.8 firearm offences every single day. And yet none of them will register their firearms, none of them will have firearm licences, and none of the legislation that went through is actually going to affect them. So we've got to just make sure that we do this right, because the outcome has to benefit everybody, whether they're licensed or not.